Posh. This liquor was first introduced to me by a couple of liquor distributors. After tasting it, I was pretty impressed by it. It's as if pisco and whiskey had a baby. And while Posh is new to me, its origins trace back to the Tzotil Mayans of Chiapas, Mexico, who can trace their ancestry back nearly 2,000 years. Posh, translated, means medicine or healing, and it's a liquor made from corn, wheat bread, and a boiled sugarcane sweetener called piloncillo. And I'm probably saying that wrong, so thank you internet commenters. Posh, like many liquors, was first consumed as a healing tonic, but it's also the centerpiece of religious ceremonies, and it's still used for those purposes today. Commercially, Posh as a drinky drink has recently expanded its horizons, and it's earned a reputation as a very tasty, very hip spirit. So let's talk about Posh. But before I jump in, do me a huge favor and be sure to subscribe to Come to Cheesus. Cheesus will bless you for this, and let me know in the comments below what other liquors you would like to talk about. I don't know about you, but I feel very posh. Posh is a pretty unique beverage because it's something of a secret. Today there's only about 500,000 native speakers of the Tzotil language left. Mexico's government outlawed Posh for a time, and over the years it hasn't managed to trickle out beyond the Chiapas border. Previously, Mexico's southernmost state was outshined by its neighbor Oaxaca. Yeah, the proud capital of mezcal production. Oh, and we all know that one. Mezcal is another plant-based liquor, except it's made from agave like its superstar cousin tequila, which is by far Mexico's most popular drink. With that much bad decision fuel living right next door, it was tough for Posh to make a name for itself outside of its hometown. For a long time, the only way to try it was to track down a local willing to sell you some of their home brew, which would likely come in a plastic bottle. But over the past few years, Posh has started to stretch its little corn stalks into boutique bars across Mexico and into the United States, including bars in Dallas and Los Angeles. However, its bid to enter the big leagues was met with an unusual problem. There's no real recipe for Posh. Well, at least not the one everyone agrees on anyway. Like I said, Posh is a unique drink. The turbulent history of Chiapas and the Mayans drove Posh pretty far underground for generations. So it became the boozy equivalent of a family recipe. One issue with that, nobody's family made it the same way. When bars in Chiapas like Posheria, located in the state's former capital, San Cristobal de las Casas, first began producing Posh for commercial distribution in the early 2010s, the first thing they had to do was get together and agree on a standardized process, if not a fully standardized recipe. So, how did they make it? Well, if you're trying to get the original ceremonial brew, you know, the one made by the Mayans, you have to see if you can find someone who's willing to share the recipe. But the end result will net you a batch of sweet, clear liquor with a coating bite. It's similar to whiskey that can be infused with any number of herbs and fruits, like rosemary, peppermint, lemongrass, or mangoes, to the tune of 60% ABV. That's pretty strong. Those ceremonies must have been pretty enlightening. Just like those ceremonial brewmeisters, no commercial operation makes Posh exactly the same way. But here's the gist. First, you take all of your ingredients, that'll be your corn, wheat bran, and piloncillo, plus any secrets you don't feel like sharing, and toss them into a still for 24 hours, making sure to stir the mixture every 2. You'll then cover the resultant mixture and let it ferment for anywhere from 6 days to 2 weeks, which will produce a spirit called chicha. But chicha is pretty weak as far as booze goes, which is why this video is about Posh and not chicha. One round of distillation will clear all that up and net you your own very batch of Posh. You could call it quits there and bottle the stuff, and many do, which is why local Posh brewers still consider the Posh served at trendy cocktail bars to be the juice box version of the real thing. If you want to tip a glass back of the ceremonial punch bowl, at least one more round of distillation is in order to bring the Posh up to that hair-growing 60% ABV. No, seriously, one sip of that and you'll spontaneously grow a beard. What the hell do you think happened to me? So, what does Posh actually taste like? On the nose, Posh reminds me of a milder tequila, but it doesn't induce that same gag reflex in me that evil liquor does. Full disclosure, I had a rough experience with tequila in college, and my body has not let me forget it for one day since then. When tasting, I recommend drinking it like a whiskey, that is, neat with a glass of water on the side. Posh has a mild bite and really enforces that whiskey vibe going on. That alcohol doesn't punch you nearly as hard as I thought it would, and really, it's pretty tasty. It has a great balance. You'll get that subtle, smoky and woody notes. There's a sweetness to it without feeling too sugary. You'll get these complex and nuanced layers. Posh is clean with no lingering aftertaste. It might be too easy to drink. Posh is also a comparatively lighter drink with a sweet aftertaste, depending on what herbs and fruits were added to the batch during distillation. So where can I get a bottle? Well, there's good news and there's less than good news. The good news is Posh isn't really that hard to find. As I mentioned earlier, the proud son of the Chiapas can be found in cocktail bars in Mexico, and its availability is likely to grow along Posh's steady rise in popularity. If Mexico's too far of a trip, you can have a bottle of the stuff, mailed to your house. It's the internet, people. The less good news is, while Posh isn't technically hard to find, it's only being served in bars in Mexico or the southwestern part of the United States. And while you can easily order a bottle, only a few brands actually make it. Like I said, it's not hard to find, but your options might get pretty limited depending on where the party is. Should you find yourself in Mexico, and I hope you do, the traditional way to enjoy Posh is in a ritual ceremony to commune with the earth, cleanse the body and the mind of evil spirits, and strengthen bonds with your fellow human. In fact, you can even pop into some churches such as San Juan Chamula and San Pedro and get served a spirit cleansing shot by local shamans. Just don't ask for a Jaeger bomb, okay? It's also in flights alongside mezcal and tequila to introduce sophisticated drinkers to a truly unique spirit that until fairly recently was virtually unknown outside of Chiapas. But because of my purging history with tequila, I will not be attending that event. If you're more in the mood for a relaxing evening rather than a full-blown ritual, although I guess they're both technically the same thing, Posh can be enjoyed in a number of cocktails. Because of its flavor profile, it pairs nicely with sweet and citrus. For instance, you can make a Posh Negroni by swapping out the gin and putting some Posh in there. So that's Posh, Campari, and sweet vermouth. This one is okay, but I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't think Campari and this blend together too well. It brings out too much smoky bitterness. On the other hand, you have the Mateo Posh cocktail, which is a drink of Posh, whiskey, and simple syrup with some decorative herbs. And I enjoyed this one a lot more. It's a pretty strong drink, has the sweet and the peat that nicely balance each other out. And you know what? It's my recommendation. So what do you think? Have you ever tried Posh? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos only from Come to Cheesus.